How was it backstage, like coming in and filling that role?
Messy. It was, well, I mean, it was organized chaos, but no, actually, there's no organized. It was chaos. So back there, they didn't know what to do with people. Like you'd come in. God, how do I explain? You're asking overall, the overall general feel.
Yeah, just general, going in there, because like that's like a
Completely
huge.
disorganized. Completely disorganized. I like just completely disorganized. They didn't know what to do with people. Well, that's why so many people walked out at that point. We had, at that particular time, you had, Benoit and all those guys walked out. Bret Hart left. These were guys I was working with or seeing on a regular basis. You had on the wall, they would have the match and pre-taping list and what time. So you knew that, you go, you get on, go, there's the makeup artist or two there. Go and you get in your makeup and plan for your pre-tape at the appointed time. And all of a sudden things would be scratched out and moved and this, that, and the other. And there's no real organization. I remember one time, Scott Steiner, who is actually a very nice guy and very much of a gentleman. I used to read about him online and be like, well, that's not true. That he would flip out and all this other stuff and he was nasty. And I've worked with him on tour since. He's still remained a gentleman. Whenever I see him, he's always a decent guy. This particular situation, he did flip out, and not throwing, just he had his bleach on because he wasn't due up. And they came in and they hysterically, Scott, you're needed. The pre-taping, you should be here by now. And he's like, that's not what the thing says. Like I have time to do this. Nobody got me and nobody told me anything. So basically get organized. You didn't even give me a heads up. I wouldn't be doing this right now if I knew ahead of time. So,
Yeah, sure.
and then you read on the internet that he just flipped out for no apparent reason. They never lead up to the point that they switched everything around and never told them. So that's the kind of stuff that happened all the time. So
that's crazy. Like, because I feel like a lot of people must have got really worked by Scott back then from like what was gimmick and what was real. Because it's like, he had the hothead sort of gimmick and character where he'd blow up. And
yeah, I was there earlier and much longer than anybody knows because they just kept us in the back. Like we'd show up and sit in the back. There was always a bunch of girls, like a whole locker room full of girls just sitting in the back doing nothing, literally nothing.
Were you just sitting there at that stage just going, hey, I'm just going to collect a paycheck? Or was it like frustration?
Yeah, but I'm not a collect a paycheck person at all. Like I wanted to be doing something. For me, money is not a primary motivator. Feeling good about what I'm creating and doing is where I wanted to be. And I knew at that particular time I was coming off of, like I said, I was coming off of Playboy. I was coming off of being sponsored by Metrix. I was coming off of also being sponsored by nutrition, extreme nutrition in the UK. And I was getting offers for like the Iron Man swimsuit edition and all these other things and more comic books. And I was not able to get over to LA or England to do these things because of my schedule with WCW. So eventually I asked to leave because they weren't using me. I remember taking Terry Taylor aside and I said, hey, listen, if you guys aren't going to use me, I'm not interested in pursuing this anymore. So he said to me, he's like, hey, well, if that's the situation, hang on. And he called Jim Ross right then and there. And he said, we have a girl here. She's not under contract because I was on a per show basis.
Sure.
He said, she's not under contract, but you guys should really take a look at her. So WWE was coming into LA for WrestleMania. And they flew me over the day after to meet with their writers and meet Jim Ross and everybody. And after that, they're the ones that sent me to Killer Kowalski's. And in the midst of all of this, everything fell apart. ECW, WCW, like all of it fell apart. And I got lost in that shuffle where WWE is like, oh, who do we acquire? Who do we let go? What are we doing? So I went to Japan.
Was there any like storyline ideas pitched for you to come into WWE, or it was more along the lines of like go to Kowalski, get some training in, and then we'll assess in like 6 months to a year?
Yeah, basically that. I mean, every time they were in Boston, I went backstage and met with them again, and they didn't like the interracial tag team at all. That wasn't uh, pleasing to them.
Really? Like so it wasn't the fact that it was it was sort of like intergender. There was the fact that it was a black man with a white woman that they didn't like.
Yeah, that came. Yeah, that's what my trainer was told. They wanted to send me to OVW. I got an offer to go to OVW if I was willing to also go alone and also be completely single, which I thought was weird. So I remember asking, I remember saying, thank you for the offer. I really appreciate it. But I don't understand I don't understand what my personal life has to do with my ability to be present in the ring and learn my craft.
That's
They're like,
sketchy.
that's just, yeah.
That's real
I felt
sketchy.
too. And I had my website at the time. I had, obviously I knew I was going to have to give up my name, my website, all my bookings. I was making good money at the time doing my thing because I've always been kind of an entrepreneur. Cheap plug, aprilhunter.net, Patreon, April Hunter, OnlyFans, April Hunter. Don't get excited. It's not porn. So
I like how you just inserted that in. Don't get excited.
You like that? So, also the A Show on Twitch. So yeah, so I've always kind of been self-employed, doing my own thing, hustling, and that whole gimmick, basically, and freedom. I love freedom, which is why I'm that's my thing, freedom.
Yeah, 100%.
Across the board. And so for them to put me under contract and lock me down for $500 a week, which is what it was at the time, and then dictate before they even did that I had to be 100% single, as I put it, 100% single. I was like, oh, wow. If you guys are going to ask me that before you're even paying me, what are you going to ask me to do when you are paying me?
Yeah, like that, as I said, that seems really sketchy that anyone like anyone hiring you to do a service, which or for wrestling or entertainment values or whatever. Oh yeah, by the way, we need you to do this, but we need you to be single. Like that's like, and I feel like that's the time where like for a lot of the when you look at the time in wrestling as well, where they had a lot of the models coming in and stuff like that. Whereas like maybe they were like trying to see what they could get away with certain people, and it's just it's real
huge sketchy. Flaming red flag. So I declined.
Yeah, I can't blame you for that. Like, were they surprised when you turned them down? Because I can imagine they'd be like, "What? No one."
I don't know. I mean, probably.